The evening rush at Blue Harbor Restaurant was in full swing. The clinking of glasses and the hum of conversation filled the air as Lucy wiped her forehead with the back of her hand. 6 hours into her shift, and she still had another 4 to go. Her feet ached in her worn-out shoes, but she plastered on a smile as she approached table 7 with water refills. Just a few more hours, she whispered to herself. Just a few more hours and I can go home. Lucy wasn't just tired from today's shift. She was tired from the 3 doubles she'd worked this week. Tired from the constant worry about making rent. Tired from wondering if she'd have enough left over to help her younger sister Becca with her college textbooks this semester. At 26, Lucy had put her own dreams of becoming a teacher on hold after their parents died in a car accident 2 years ago. Someone had to step up and make sure Becca could finish school, and Lucy had promised their mom that both her daughters would get their degrees someday. For now, that meant Lucy worked while Becca studied. Order up for table 12, called Hank, the head chef. Ringing the small bell at the kitchen window, Lucy quickly delivered the water glasses and hurried to pick up her next order. As she balanced the heavy tray on her shoulder, she noticed a couple being seated at her newest table, table 15. The man wore a tailored suit that probably cost more than Lucy made in 3 months. His wife was dressed just as elegantly in a deep blue dress that brought out her eyes, a diamond necklace sparkling at her throat. Lucy recognized the man immediately, though she tried not to stare. Thomas Reed, the tech billionaire whose face occasionally appeared on the business magazines Lucy flipped through during her lunch breaks. What was he doing at Blue Harbor? Sure, it was one of the nicer restaurants in town, but someone like him could eat anywhere in the world. She took a deep breath and delivered the food to table 12 before approaching the Reeds. "Good evening and welcome to Blue Harbor," Lucy said with a genuine smile. "My name is Lucy and I'll be taking care of you tonight. Can I start you with something to drink?" Mrs. Reed barely looked up from her menu. "Sparkling water with lime, please." Mr. Reed, however, met Lucy's eyes with unexpected warmth. "I'll have the same, thank you. And could you tell us about tonight's specials?" Lucy described the chef's selections for the evening, taking care to pronounce everything correctly. She'd learned early on that customers tipped better when you sounded like you knew what you were talking about, even if you'd never tasted the dishes yourself. As she walked away to get their drinks, Lucy overheard snippets of their conversation. Something about an anniversary. 15 years, she thought she heard. They didn't look old enough to have been married that long, but then again, money did have a way of keeping people looking young. When Lucy returned with their drinks, Mrs. Reed was dabbing at her eyes with a napkin. "Are you all right, ma'am?" Lucy asked, concerned. "I'm fine," Mrs. Reed replied curtly. "Just a bit of dust or something." Mr. Reed gave his wife a concerned look. "Sophia, your eyes are getting quite red." Lucy noticed it too. Mrs. Reed's eyes weren't just watery, they were turning puffy, and red blotches were appearing on her neck. "Ma'am, I don't mean to intrude, but are you allergic to anything?" Lucy asked, alarm bells ringing in her head. Her cousin had similar reactions to shellfish. "No, Mrs. Reed started to say, then stopped, her hand flying to her throat. "Well, yes, hazelnuts, but I haven't had any." Lucy glanced at the table next to them where a customer was enjoying the restaurant's famous hazelnut-crusted salmon. The kitchen had been preparing it all evening. "I think you might be having a reaction," Lucy said urgently. "Do you have an EpiPen with you?" Mrs. Reed's eyes widened with panic as she shook her head. Her breathing was becoming labored. "Thomas," she gasped, reaching for her husband's hand. Lucy didn't hesitate. "Sir, I'm going to call an ambulance." But first, she rushed to the server station, yanking open the first aid drawer where she knew the restaurant kept an emergency EpiPen. The owner's daughter had severe allergies, and he insisted on having one on hand at all times. Within seconds, Lucy was back at the table, EpiPen in hand. "Ma'am, I have an EpiPen. Do I have your permission to use it?" Mr. Reed nodded frantically while his wife, now struggling to breathe, managed a weak yes. Lucy had never used an EpiPen on anyone but herself, another leftover from her childhood asthma, but she remembered the steps clearly. She removed the cap, firmly pressed the device against Mrs. Reed's outer thigh, and held it for 3 seconds before removing it. "I've called 911, said Kelly, another waitress who had noticed the commotion. "They're on their way." "Thank you," Lucy said, not taking her eyes off Mrs. Reed. "Ma'am, the ambulance is coming. Try to stay calm and take slow breaths if you can." Mrs. Reed's breathing eased slightly as the epinephrine took effect, though her face remained flushed and swollen. Mr. Reed had moved his chair next to his wife and was holding her hand tightly. "Thank you," he said to Lucy, his voice thick with emotion. "I don't know what would have happened if—" "It's nothing, sir," Lucy assured him. "I'm just glad we had the EpiPen available." For the next 10 minutes, Lucy stayed with the couple, bringing ice water and a cool cloth for Mrs. Reed's forehead. She canceled their food order and kept other customers away from their table, creating a small island of privacy in the busy restaurant. When the paramedics arrived, Lucy quickly explained what had happened and what steps she'd taken. As they prepared to take Mrs. Reed to the hospital for observation, Mr. Reed finally stood up looking somewhat lost. "Your bill, sir?" Lucy said, handing him a slip of paper. "There's no charge, of course. I just need your signature to close out the check." Mr. Reed looked at the paper, then back at Lucy with an expression she couldn't quite read. "What's your name again?" he asked. "Lucy. Lucy Chen." He nodded slowly. "Lucy Chen. I won't forget that name." As the Reeds left with the paramedics, Lucy began clearing their table. The restaurant manager, David, approached her with a concerned look. "Everything okay? I heard there was a medical emergency." Lucy nodded. Mrs. Reed had an allergic reaction, probably airborne particles from the hazelnut dishes. "She's going to be fine." David looked impressed. Quick thinking with the EpiPen. "Not everyone would have known what to do." Lucy shrugged. "Just doing my job." But as she continued her shift, serving other tables and smiling through her exhaustion, Lucy couldn't shake the feeling that something significant had just happened. The way Mr. Reed had looked at her, not just with gratitude, but with something deeper, like he was seeing her, really seeing her, as a person, rather than just another server in a restaurant full of interchangeable staff. She pushed the thought aside. Rich people came and went from Blue Harbor all the time. Some were nice, some weren't. None of them ever remembered her name after they left. Why would Thomas Reed be any different? What Lucy didn't know was that Thomas Reed was still thinking about her as the ambulance carried his wife to the hospital. He was thinking about how quickly she had acted, how she had potentially saved Sophia's life without a moment's hesitation. He was thinking about the kindness in her eyes when she'd stayed with them, keeping Sophia calm while they waited for help. And he was thinking about the brief glimpse he'd gotten of Lucy's life when he'd overheard her talking to another server by the kitchen. Something about her sister's textbooks and working double shifts all week. Thomas Reed had built his fortune by recognizing potential where others saw nothing. And there was something about Lucy Chen, something beyond her quick thinking during an emergency, that had caught his attention. A spark of determination behind the exhaustion in her eyes, a kindness that seemed genuine rather than practiced for tips. As the ambulance pulled up to the hospital, Thomas made a mental note to find out more about the waitress who had helped his wife. Not because he owed her a debt, though he certainly did, but because he had a feeling, the same feeling that had led him to invest in unknown startups that later became billion-dollar companies, that there was more to Lucy Chen than met the eye. And Thomas Reed had learned long ago to trust his instincts. 3 days had passed since the incident with Mrs. Reed, and Lucy had almost forgotten about it. Almost, but not quite. Every now and then, between taking orders and balancing trays, she would remember the look on Thomas Reed's face as he'd said her name. Like he was making a note of it, storing it away for future reference. But wealthy people came and went from Blue Harbor all the time. They left generous tips when they were happy with the service, complained to management when they weren't, and then they disappeared back into their world of luxury cars and gated communities. A world that might as well have been on another planet from Lucy's cramped one-bedroom apartment that she shared with her sister. "Order for table 9, Hank called from the kitchen. Lucy grabbed the plates and headed toward a family of 4 celebrating their son's birthday. She was halfway there when she noticed him sitting alone at table 15, the same table from 3 nights ago. Thomas Reed, dressed more casually today in a light blue button-down shirt with the sleeves rolled up, revealing an expensive-looking watch. No Mrs. Reed in sight. Lucy delivered the birthday dinner first, then made her way to table 15, wondering if he would remember her. "Good evening, Mr. Reed," she said with a professional smile. "It's nice to see you again. How is your wife feeling?" Thomas looked up, his eyes brightening with recognition. "Lucy Chen, I was hoping you'd be working tonight." Something about the way he said it made Lucy slightly uncomfortable. Had he come here looking for her specifically? She pushed the thought aside. He probably just wanted to thank her properly for helping his wife. Sophia is doing well, thank you for asking, he continued. The doctor said if the epinephrine hadn't been administered so quickly, things could have gotten much worse. You potentially saved her life. Lucy felt her cheeks warm. I'm glad she's okay. It was nothing, really. Anyone would have done the same. Thomas shook his head. Not anyone. The paramedics told me most people freeze in emergency situations. You didn't, you acted. Lucy shifted her weight from one aching foot to the other. Well, I'm very glad she's recovering. Can I get you something to drink? Just water for now, please. I'm waiting for someone. When Lucy returned with his water, Thomas was checking his phone. He thanked her without looking up, so Lucy moved on to her other tables. The dinner rush was in full swing, and she couldn't afford to spend too much time with any one customer, even if he was a billionaire. An hour passed. Thomas ordered an appetizer, then a main course. Whoever he was waiting for never showed. But instead of seeming annoyed, he seemed watchful. Several times, Lucy caught him observing her as she worked, the way she handled a child's spilled milk with a kind smile. How she remembered Mrs. Wilson's special request for extra lemons with her fish. The patience she showed with an elderly couple who couldn't decide what to order. It was strange. Lucy was used to being invisible to people like Thomas Reed. Waitresses were just part of the restaurant landscape, necessary but unnoticed unless something went wrong. Yet here he was, one of the richest men in the country, studying her as if she were a puzzle he was trying to solve. Near the end of her shift, when the restaurant had quieted down, Thomas waved her over. Is there something else I can get you, Mr. Reed? Lucy asked. Please call me Thomas, he said, surprising her. And no, nothing else. The food was excellent. I was just curious about something. Lucy waited, unsure where this was going. How long have you worked here, Lucy? About 3 years now. And do you enjoy it? Lucy hesitated. What was the right answer here? The honest one? That she was grateful for the job but dreamed of doing something else? Or the safe one? That she loved every minute of working at Blue Harbor? She opted for something in between. It pays the bills. The people are nice. Some days are better than others. Thomas nodded thoughtfully. I noticed how you handle difficult situations. Very calm, very professional. Have you ever considered a different line of work? Lucy's guard went up. Was this heading where she thought it was? Rich man meets waitress offers her a better opportunity that turns out to be something inappropriate. She'd been down that road before and had no interest in traveling it again. I've considered finishing my teaching degree, she said coolly, when circumstances allow. If Thomas noticed her sudden change in tone, he didn't show it. Instead, he surprised her again. Teaching. What subject? The question seemed genuine, so Lucy answered honestly. Elementary education. I've always loved working with kids. What's stopping you? Lucy almost laughed. What wasn't stopping her? Money, time, the responsibility of caring for her sister. But she wasn't about to share her life story with a stranger, even one who'd left her $100 tip a few nights ago. Life, she said simply. It gets in the way sometimes. Before Thomas could respond, David, the manager, approached their table. Mr. Reed, he said, extending his hand. I'm David Chen, the manager. I just wanted to personally apologize for what happened during your last visit. We've implemented new protocols to warn guests about potential airborne allergens. No apology necessary, Thomas said, shaking David's hand. Your staff handled the situation perfectly. David beamed. Lucy mentioned what happened. We're very proud of her quick thinking. As you should be, Thomas agreed. Then turning back to Lucy. Actually, there is one more thing you could help me with. My wife was wondering if you'd be working this Friday evening. She'd like to thank you personally. Lucy checked the schedule in her head. Yes, I'll be here. My shift starts at 4. Excellent. We'll see you then. After Thomas left, leaving another generous tip, David pulled Lucy aside. What did Thomas Reed want with you? He asked, a mix of curiosity and concern in his voice. Lucy shrugged. His wife wants to thank me for helping with her allergic reaction. That's all. David didn't look convinced. Be careful, Lucy. I've seen how these things go. Rich guy takes an interest in a waitress. It's not like that, Lucy interrupted, annoyed at the implication. He's happily married. I helped his wife during a medical emergency. That's it. David raised his hands in surrender. Okay. Just looking out for you. Lucy appreciated the concern, but she didn't need it. She knew exactly where the boundaries were, and she had no intention of crossing them. What Lucy didn't know was that Thomas Reed hadn't been stood up that evening. There was no meeting scheduled, no friend running late. He had come to Blue Harbor for the sole purpose of watching Lucy work. After leaving the restaurant, Thomas made a phone call from his car. "Hey, it's me," he said, when his wife answered. "I just left the restaurant." "And?" Sophia asked. "Is she the real deal?" Thomas thought about what he'd observed over the past 2 hours. Lucy's efficiency, her genuine kindness to customers young and old, the way she'd slipped half of her own chocolate dessert to a little boy who'd dropped his ice cream on the floor when his mother wasn't looking. "Yes," he said finally. "She's exactly what we've been looking for. Are you sure? We've been disappointed before." Thomas remembered the weariness in Lucy's eyes when he'd asked about teaching, the way her face had lit up at the mention of working with children, and how quickly that light had dimmed when reality set in. "I'm sure," he said. "We're having dinner there on Friday. You can see for yourself." As he hung up, Thomas thought about the test he'd prepared for Lucy. The final confirmation he needed before moving forward with their plan. It wasn't enough that she had acted quickly during an emergency, or that she was kind to customers. There were plenty of good servers in the world. What Thomas and Sophia needed was someone extraordinary. Someone whose goodness ran deeper than surface politeness. Someone who would do the right thing even when no one was watching. Friday would tell them everything they needed to know. Friday arrived and Lucy was running late. Becca had been up all night with a fever, and Lucy had stayed awake with her, applying cool cloths to her forehead and making sure she took her medicine. By the time Becca's fever broke in the early morning, Lucy had managed only 2 hours of sleep before her alarm blared, reminding her that real life didn't stop for family emergencies. "You look terrible," Kelly told her as Lucy rushed into the employee break room at Blue Harbor, hastily tying her apron. "Thanks," Lucy muttered, splashing cold water on her face in the small sink. "Just what every girl wants to hear." "I mean it," Kelly insisted, concern in her voice. "You're pale as a ghost. Are you sick?" Lucy shook her head. "Becca was up all night with a fever." "I'm fine, just tired. You should go home. I can cover your shift." The offer was tempting, but Lucy couldn't afford to lose the hours. Rent was due next week and she was already cutting it close. "I appreciate it, but I need the money. Besides," she added, attempting a smile, "the Reeds are coming in tonight. Mrs. Reed wants to thank me for helping with her allergic reaction." Kelly's eyes widened. "The Reeds? As in Thomas Reed, the tech billionaire?" "The very same. I heard he left you a $100 tip the other night." News traveled fast in the restaurant industry. "He did. Maybe he'll do it again," Kelly said with a wink. "That would make staying worth it, right?" Lucy rolled her eyes but couldn't help smiling. An extra $100 would certainly help with Becca's medicine. The first few hours of her shift passed in a blur of orders, drinks, and forced smiles. By 6 o'clock, Lucy's feet were throbbing and she'd developed a pounding headache. But she pushed through, reminding herself that she only had 4 more hours to go. At 7, David caught her arm as she passed the host stand. "Table 15 just got seated." "It's the Reeds." Lucy nodded, taking a moment to straighten her uniform and smooth her hair before approaching their table. Thomas and Sophia Reed made a striking couple. He was as she remembered, tall with salt and pepper hair and intelligent eyes. His wife was even more beautiful than Lucy recalled, though that wasn't surprising given that their last encounter had involved Sophia's face swelling from an allergic reaction. "Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. Reed." Lucy greeted them with a genuine smile. "It's nice to see you both again, especially under better circumstances." Sophia Reed looked up with warm brown eyes. "Lucy, I'm so glad you're here. I wanted to thank you personally for what you did the other night. The doctor said if you hadn't acted so quickly..." She trailed off, her hand unconsciously touching her throat. "I'm just happy you're all right," Lucy said. "Can I get you both something to drink?" They ordered, and Lucy moved efficiently between their table and her others throughout the evening. Despite her exhaustion, she found herself enjoying the Reeds' company during the brief moments she spent at their table. They asked her questions about the menu, about how long she'd worked at Blue Harbor, but never in a way that felt intrusive or condescending. There was a genuine warmth to them that Lucy hadn't expected from people of their wealth and status. As they finished their meal, Sophia reached into her purse and pulled out a small gift bag. "A small token of our appreciation," she said, handing it to Lucy. "Oh, you didn't have to," Lucy began, but Sophia waved away her protest. "Please, it's nothing extravagant. Just a thank you." Lucy accepted the bag with a grateful nod. "Thank you. That's very kind." After the Reeds left with another generous tip, Lucy finally had a moment to peek inside the gift bag in the break room. It contained a small box from a high-end jewelry store. Inside was a delicate silver bracelet with a small charm in the shape of a first aid kit. Lucy laughed at the thoughtful detail, touched by the gesture. Her shift ended at 11 and she was more than ready to go home. Her head still throbbed, and all she wanted was to crawl into bed and sleep for a solid 8 hours. As she stepped out the back door of the restaurant into the cool night air, she fumbled in her bag for her car keys. A movement in the shadows of the parking lot caught her attention. A man in a suit, not Thomas Reed but someone with the same polished look, was walking briskly toward a sleek black car. As he passed under a streetlight, Lucy saw him check his watch and quicken his pace. He was carrying a manila envelope. Just as he reached his car, the envelope slipped from his grasp, paper spilling onto the wet pavement. The man cursed, quickly gathering the documents, but in his haste he missed one that had skittered under a nearby car. Lucy hesitated. It was late, she was exhausted, and all she wanted was to go home. But what if that paper was important? The man was already getting into his car, clearly unaware he'd left something behind. With a sigh, Lucy hurried across the parking lot. "Excuse me," she called. "Sir, I think you dropped something." The man either didn't hear her or chose to ignore her. His car pulled out of the parking lot and disappeared down the street. Lucy crouched down, reaching under the car to retrieve the fallen paper. It was a check. A business check with the Reed Innovations logo in the corner. Lucy's eyes widened as she saw the amount. $5,000 made out to cash. For a brief, wild moment, Lucy considered the possibilities. $5,000. That would cover rent for months. It would pay for Becca's textbooks for the entire year. It might even allow Lucy to cut back on her hours and take a class or two herself. But the thought vanished as quickly as it had come. This wasn't her money. It belonged to Thomas Reed or his company, and had clearly been dropped by accident. Lucy tucked the check carefully into her wallet. She'd call Reed Innovations in the morning and let them know she'd found it. For now, she just wanted to go home. What Lucy didn't know was that her interaction with the man in the suit had been observed by 2 pairs of eyes. From a car parked across the street, Thomas and Sophia Reed watched the entire scene unfold. "Did she take it?" Sophia asked, unable to see clearly in the dim light. Thomas adjusted his binoculars slightly. "Yes, she picked it up. And?" "She's putting it in her wallet." Sophia frowned. "So she's keeping it? That's disappointing. I really thought—" "Wait," Thomas interrupted. "She's looking at it, reading it. Her expression, I can't quite tell if she's tempted or concerned." "Well, anyone would be tempted by $5,000, especially someone in her financial situation," Sophia pointed out. "The question is what she'll do with that temptation." Thomas lowered the binoculars as Lucy got into her car and drove away. "We'll find out soon enough. If she calls the office tomorrow to report finding the check, we'll have our answer." "And if she doesn't call? If she tries to cash it?" Thomas shook his head. "She won't be able to. It's not a real check, just a very convincing fake. But the attempt would tell us everything we need to know." Sophia studied her husband's face in the dim light of the car. "You really want this to work out, don't you?" "You believe in her?" "I do," Thomas admitted. "There's something about her, Sophia. A strength and integrity. If she passes this test—" He trailed off, already planning the next steps. "If she passes this test," Sophia finished for him, "we could change her life forever." As they drove home to their hillside mansion, neither of them could have guessed just how accurate that statement would prove to be. For Lucy Chen, exhausted and unaware of the test she'd just been given, tomorrow would bring a choice that would alter the course of her life in ways she couldn't begin to imagine. Lucy woke up early the next morning despite her exhaustion. Becca was still asleep, her fever gone, but her body needing rest to recover. Lucy moved quietly around their small kitchen, making coffee and toast while her mind kept returning to the check she'd found last night. $5,000. It seemed like such a massive amount to her, nearly 3 months' worth of rent and utilities. She pulled it from her wallet and examined it again in the morning light. The paper felt expensive, the printing crisp and professional. The signature at the bottom was bold and confident. Thomas Reed. Lucy sighed and set her coffee mug down on the counter. There was only one right thing to do here, and she knew it. She grabbed her phone and did a quick search for Reed Innovations, finding their main number on their website. After 3 rings, a professional voice answered. Reed Innovations, how may I direct your call? Lucy cleared her throat. Hi, I found something that I think belongs to your company. A check. I was wondering who I should talk to about returning it. There was a pause on the other end. A check? May I ask where you found this check, ma'am? In the parking lot at Blue Harbor Restaurant last night. I work there and I saw a man drop it as he was leaving. Another pause. Could you hold for a moment, please? Before Lucy could respond, soft hold music began playing. She waited, tapping her fingers nervously on the counter. What if they thought she had stolen it?
What if— Hello?
A new voice came on the line, deep and instantly recognizable. Lucy nearly dropped her phone. Mr. Reed? Lucy, Thomas said, and she could hear the smile in his voice. I understand you found something that belongs to me. Yes, a check. For $5,000. One of your employees dropped it in the parking lot last night, but he drove away before I could catch him. I see. Thomas's tone was unreadable. And you're calling to return it? Of course, Lucy said, slightly confused by the question. It's not mine. There was a long pause, and for a moment Lucy thought the call had dropped. Then Thomas spoke again, his voice warmer now. Lucy, I wonder if you might be able to meet with me and my wife today. There's something we'd like to discuss with you. Lucy's stomach tightened with anxiety. Is something wrong? No, nothing's wrong, Thomas assured her quickly. Quite the opposite, in fact. Are you free this afternoon, say around 2 o'clock? Lucy thought about her schedule. She wasn't due at the restaurant until 5. Yes, I could do that. Excellent. Do you know the Garden Cafe on Pine Street? Lucy knew it. A charming upscale cafe that she'd walked past many times but never entered. It was well outside her budget. I can find it, she said. Perfect. We'll see you at 2. After hanging up, Lucy stood frozen in her kitchen, coffee forgotten. What had just happened? Why would Thomas Reed, one of the richest men in the country, want to meet with her? And why had he sounded so pleased that she was returning the check? The questions swirled in her mind as she got ready, choosing her nicest casual outfit, dark jeans and a blue blouse that Becca always said brought out her eyes. She left a note for her sister explaining where she'd gone, just in case Becca woke up while she was out. The Garden Cafe was just as lovely inside as it appeared from the outside. Sunlight streamed through large windows, illuminating tables adorned with fresh flowers. A hostess led Lucy to a quiet corner where Thomas and Sophia Reed were already seated. Lucy, Sophia said warmly, standing to greet her. Thank you for coming. Thomas stood as well, pulling out a chair for her. We ordered some pastries for the table. I hope you don't mind. Not at all, Lucy said, feeling increasingly out of place in this refined setting with these refined people. She reached into her bag and pulled out the check. I wanted to return this to you. Thomas took the check, glancing at it briefly before tucking it into his jacket pocket. Thank you. Though I have a confession to make, Lucy. This check is not real. Lucy blinked. What? It's a very good fake, Sophia explained gently. But not a real check. Lucy felt her face grow hot with embarrassment and a touch of anger. So it was some kind of test? You were testing me? Thomas nodded, unapologetic. Yes. Why? Thomas and Sophia exchanged a glance, some unspoken communication passing between them. Then Thomas leaned forward. Because we're considering offering you an opportunity, Lucy. A significant one. But before we did, we needed to be certain about your character. Lucy's anger faded slightly, replaced by curiosity. What kind of opportunity? Let me back up a bit, Thomas said. Did you know that Sophia and I run a foundation? Lucy shook her head. The Reed Foundation for Educational Opportunity, Sophia explained. We provide scholarships and support for promising individuals who haven't had access to educational resources they deserve. That's wonderful, Lucy said sincerely. But what does that have to do with me? Thomas smiled. Everything. We've been looking for someone to help us expand the foundation's reach, someone who understands firsthand the barriers that prevent talented people from achieving their educational goals. Someone with empathy, quick thinking, and uncompromising integrity. Someone like you? Sophia added softly. Lucy looked between them. Sure, she must be misunderstanding. I don't have any experience with foundations or nonprofits. I'm just a waitress. You're not just anything, Thomas said firmly. You're someone who put her own dreams on hold to support her sister. Someone who acted quickly and decisively during a medical emergency. Someone who found a check for $5,000 and didn't hesitate to return it, even though it could have solved many of your immediate problems. Lucy felt exposed, vulnerable. How do you know about my sister? We did our homework, Sophia admitted. After you helped me at the restaurant, Thomas was curious about you. He came back to observe you at work, and then we made some inquiries. Under normal circumstances, Lucy might have found this intrusive, even creepy, but there was something so genuine about the way the Reeds were looking at her, not with pity or condescension, but with respect and hope. What exactly are you offering me? She asked cautiously. Thomas straightened in his chair. 3 things. First, a full scholarship to complete your teaching degree. Second, flexible part-time work at our foundation while you study, with a salary that will allow you to cut back your hours at the restaurant. And third, a position at the foundation after you graduate if you're interested. Lucy's head spun. It sounded too good to be true. Why me? There must be thousands of people more qualified. Qualifications can be acquired, Sophia said. Character is innate. Besides, we're not looking for someone with a fancy resume. We're looking for someone who understands the challenges our scholarship recipients face, because she's faced them herself. Lucy stared down at the table, trying to process everything. Part of her wanted to leap at this opportunity, to say yes before they could change their minds. But another part, the cautious part that had kept her and Becca afloat these past difficult years, held her back. This is a lot to take in, she said finally. I don't know what to say. You don't have to decide right now, Thomas assured her. Take some time to think about it. Talk to your sister, but know that this offer comes with no strings attached. Whether you accept or not, the scholarship is yours if you want it. Lucy looked up, searching their faces for any sign of deception or hidden agenda. She found none. Just 2 people who seemed genuinely interested in helping her. Why? She asked simply. Why would you do this for a stranger? Sophia reached across the table and touched Lucy's hand lightly. Because someone did it for us once. Thomas wasn't born wealthy, you know? We both received scholarships that changed our lives. This is our way of paying it forward. As Lucy left the garden cafe an hour later, her head was still swimming. She had Thomas's business card in her pocket, with his personal cell number written on the back. Call me when you've made a decision, he'd said, or if you have any questions. She walked slowly back to her apartment, barely noticing the familiar streets. Her mind was too busy imagining possibilities that had seemed impossible just yesterday. Going back to school, finishing her degree, working for a foundation that helped others like her. A life beyond double shifts and constant worry about making rent. What Lucy didn't realize was that this moment, this decision, would not only change her life but would eventually lead her to change countless others. The ripples from this single meeting would spread further than she could possibly imagine. And it had all started with a simple act of kindness toward a woman having an allergic reaction in a restaurant. 3 years later, Lucy stood at the edge of a crowded ballroom watching as elegantly dressed guests mingled under crystal chandeliers. The annual Reed Foundation Gala was in full swing, and as the director of scholarship programs, she was expected to network with donors and share success stories. It was the part of her job that still felt the most foreign to her, this world of wealth and privilege that she now moved through with increasing confidence, if not complete comfort. There you are, a familiar voice said behind her. Lucy turned to see Sophia Reed approaching, radiant in a deep green gown. Hiding in the corner again? Lucy smiled, just taking a moment to breathe. It's been quite a night, it certainly has. Thomas is looking for you, by the way. He wants you beside him for the announcement. Lucy nodded, smoothing down the front of her own gown, a simple but elegant blue dress that Sophia had helped her choose. In the 3 years since that life-changing meeting at the garden cafe, Sophia had become something between a mentor and a friend to Lucy. She had guided Lucy through the unfamiliar terrain of foundation work, higher education, and yes, even the occasional formal event that required knowledge of which fork to use first. How's Becca doing? Sophia asked as they made their way through the crowd. Thomas mentioned she's considering graduate school? She is, Lucy confirmed, unable to keep the pride from her voice. MIT has offered her a fellowship in engineering. Can you believe it? My little sister at MIT. I can absolutely believe it, Sophia said warmly. She's brilliant. Must run in the family, Lucy laughed. I'm just a teacher who happens to work at a foundation. You're far more than that. And you know it. Before Lucy could respond, they reached the small stage where Thomas was conversing with several board members. He looked up as they approached, his face brightening. Lucy! Perfect timing. We're about to make the announcement. The announcement. Lucy felt a flutter of nervousness in her stomach. After months of planning and convincing the board, the Reed Foundation was about to launch its most ambitious initiative yet. A program specifically designed to support individuals who, like Lucy had been, were putting their own educational dreams on hold to care for family members. The Lucy Chen Caregivers Scholarship, they were calling it, despite her embarrassed protests. Thomas tapped a spoon against his champagne glass, and the room gradually quieted. Lucy stood to one side of him, Sophia to the other, as he addressed the gathered donors and supporters. 3 years ago, Thomas began, my wife had a severe allergic reaction at a restaurant. A murmur went through the crowd. This was not how they had expected the announcement of a new scholarship program to begin. It was terrifying, Thomas continued, but a young waitress acted quickly, administering an EpiPen and quite possibly saving Sophia's life. That waitress was kind, quick-thinking, and as we later discovered, extraordinarily dedicated to her younger sister's education. So dedicated that she had put her own dreams of becoming a teacher on indefinite hold. Lucy felt the weight of eyes turning toward her, but kept her gaze fixed on Thomas. That waitress was Lucy Chen, who now stands beside me as our director of scholarship programs. Applause broke out, and Lucy felt her cheeks warm. What many of you don't know, Thomas went on when the applause died down, is that Lucy has transformed our foundation over the past 3 years. Under her guidance, our scholarship retention rate has increased by 30%. The support systems she implemented have ensured that our recipients don't just start their education, they finish it. And they thrive. More applause, louder this time, tonight. I'm thrilled to announce the launch of the Lucy Chen Caregivers Scholarship, a program specifically designed to support individuals who are putting their own education on hold to care for family members. This initiative will provide not just financial support, but flexible scheduling options, childcare assistance, and elder care resources. All the things Lucy has taught us are essential to help caregivers succeed. As Thomas detailed the specifics of the program, Lucy found herself thinking back to that night in the restaurant, the exhaustion in her bones as she'd worked a double shift, the flash of fear when she'd realized Sophia was having an allergic reaction. The simple, instinctive decision to help. She could never have imagined then where that moment would lead her. To a completed teaching degree. To a job that allowed her to help others overcome the same barriers she had faced. To standing on this stage beside 2 people who had become not just her employers, but her friends and mentors. Later, as the formal presentations ended and the guests returned to mingling, Lucy found a quiet moment with Thomas and Sophia. I don't know how to thank you, she said simply. For everything. Thomas shook his head. You have it backward, Lucy. We're the ones who should be thanking you. Lucy raised an eyebrow. For using an EpiPen? Anyone would have done that. Not just for that, Sophia said. For showing us what was missing in our foundation. For bringing your perspective and experience to our work. The changes you've implemented have helped hundreds of students who might otherwise have fallen through the cracks. Hundreds now, Thomas added. Thousands in the years to come. Lucy looked around the ballroom at the wealthy donors in their expensive clothes, at the large displays showing smiling scholarship recipients. It was still strange sometimes straddling these 2 worlds, remembering the weight of her server's tray in her hands while discussing million-dollar endowments. Did you know? She asked suddenly. That night at the restaurant when Sophia had her allergic reaction. Did you know then what would happen? Thomas and Sophia exchanged a look. The kind of wordless communication that comes from years of partnership. No, Thomas said honestly. We had no idea. We've supported promising individuals before, but none quite like you. Lucy, you've exceeded every expectation. Though I will say, Sophia added with a smile, Thomas was quite insistent about going back to observe you at work, and the check test was entirely his idea. I knew there was something special about you, Thomas admitted, but I didn't know exactly what it would mean for all of us. A server approached with a tray of champagne glasses. Lucy couldn't help noticing his tired eyes and forced smile, so familiar to her from her own days carrying similar trays. She thanked him warmly as she took a glass and saw his smile become genuine in response. To the Lucy Chen Caregivers Scholarship, Thomas said, raising his glass, and to many more years of changing lives together. As they clinked glasses, Lucy thought about the ripple effects of kindness. How one small act, helping a woman having an allergic reaction, had led to opportunities that changed not just her life, but her sister's. And now, through this new scholarship program, would change the lives of countless others who, like her, were putting their dreams on hold to care for the people they loved. The next morning, Lucy sat at her desk in her office at the Reed Foundation, reviewing applications for the first round of caregiver scholarships. Each story she read reminded her of her own journey, the struggles, the sacrifices, the dreams deferred but not abandoned. A knock at her door made her look up. Thomas stood there, a familiar silver bracelet with a first aid kit charm dangling from his fingers. "You left this at the gala last night," he said, placing it on her desk. "Sophia thought you might be missing it." Lucy smiled as she picked up the bracelet, the first gift the Reeds had given her, back when she was still a waitress at Blue Harbor. She fastened it around her wrist where it caught the morning light. "Hard to believe it's been 3 years," she said. Thomas nodded, looking at the stack of applications on her desk. "Finding some promising candidates?" "Every single one of them," Lucy said. "People with so much potential, just waiting for the right opportunity. Just like you were." Lucy nodded, thinking of all the paths that had brought her to this moment. The difficult years after her parents died, the double shifts at the restaurant, the fateful night when a wealthy couple sat at her table and a woman had an allergic reaction. "Thank you," she said simply, "for seeing something in me that I couldn't see in myself." Thomas smiled. "That's what we do, isn't it? See the potential in others and help them achieve it. You've become quite good at it yourself." As he left her office, Lucy turned back to the applications, each one representing a life that could be transformed, just as hers had been. With renewed purpose, she picked up the next folder, ready to continue the chain of kindness that had begun with a simple act of help in a busy restaurant 3 years ago. Some people called it luck, this dramatic shift in her life's trajectory, but Lucy knew better. It wasn't luck that had made her help Sophia that night. It wasn't luck that had made her return the check. It was character, the same quality she now looked for in scholarship applicants. And character, as Thomas had once told her, was not built by circumstance, but revealed by it.